Hey, it's me, Vicky Marie. Hi, how are you all? How was your Monday? You know what Monday is like. So I have to say that I am Vicky. I am true crime with a glass of wine tonight. Monday's always such a long day. Oh, that's good. Right, okay. I'm organised. I think I'm organised. Yeah, I'm organised. Okay, so yeah, Monday's a long day for me, but that's okay. I prefer working longer days early in the week and as the week goes on, as far as classes are concerned. Now, there's some of you out there don't know I am a Spanish teacher. That's my other life. I teach Spanish. So I've had a lot of classes today. But I wanted to come on and do this live stream because I've got a little update about Samantha Murphy, but also I want to talk about this case that one of my members said to me quite a while ago, reminded them of the Samantha Murphy case. And I just haven't had time yet to sort of look into it. And then I started looking into it and I thought, oh my God, you know, there's so many similarities. There's another case that I want to look at that has got similarities as well. But anyway, I'll tell you about that when I come to it. So tonight, we're going to talk about Samantha Murphy and what little updates there are. And we're also going to talk about the case of Karen Ristevski. And I knew nothing about this case whatsoever. I had absolutely no idea about this case. So thank you so much, because it's just apart from the fact it does resonate of Samantha's case, it's a very interesting case. And, you know, prepare to be outraged at the outcome of it, really. Prepare to be outraged. I'll just tell you that now. I am outraged. But anyway, first of all, we're going to talk about Samantha and what updates we've had in the Samantha Murphy case, which if anybody out there doesn't know about, is a 51-year-old mother of three, went for a jog 4 weeks ago at about 7 in the morning and has not been seen since. And there's been patchy sort of updates from the police. You know, it's rare that we get an update, isn't it? A proper update, but that hopefully means that there's so much going on behind the scenes. So let's have a little update on the, let me say hello to everyone first. That's probably good. Hi, Kelly. You're welcome. Thank you for letting me know about this case. Hi, Alana. Hi, David. Hi, Mello. Mello's just finished listening to last night's stream. Yeah, I am trying to do quite a lot of videos at the moment. Anyway, so I'll explain sort of later on about that. Just in case I have a little while that I can't do one. So I'm trying to sort of stock up on the videos that I make. But I want to, you know, keep up to date with Samantha, obviously. I'm sticking, that's what I wanted to tell you. Sorry, before I carry on saying hello to everybody. I've got my candle lit. You know, I've been lighting a candle every day. I've been through quite a few so far. And this, I found this in my classroom. I'd forgotten this Manchester City bottle of wine. I mean, it's empty, obviously, now. It got drank years ago. But this was bought for me by some students when I was teaching English. And one day, the owner of the school, the academy where I was working, she said to me, we've got these new students for you. And it was twin boys, teenage boys. I think they were about 14 and they were twin Spanish. And she said, we've got these new students. And I'll be perfectly honest, my heart sank a little bit, because teaching teenagers, there's two ways it can go. If they want to learn, it's brilliant. They're fantastic. They're quick off the mark. They're interested in everything you tell them. They really are fantastic students. But if they're teenagers who don't really want to learn, well, English it was, but really they're just doing it because their parents are making them do it. They're the worst student. I mean, it's just soul destroying, and I have actually turned around to parents and said, look, you're just wasting your money, because they don't want to learn. And I don't really want to teach them, to be fair, because it's so soul destroying, trying to force them to learn. It's like a waste of money. So when she first told me that it was these two twin boys, 14-year-old boys, I have to be honest, at first I just thought, oh, right, okay. Well, they were fantastic. They were great. We had, I taught them for a couple of months while they were on holiday from school in the summer. I took them for ice cream. They were lovely. They were a joy to teach. And when they finished, they bought me this bottle of wine. I don't know where they got it from, but they bought me a Manchester City bottle of wine. So I've been using it as a candle. Oh, look, I've just dripped wax all over myself now. I've been using it as a candle holder ever since, but it was sort of downstairs in the classroom. I hadn't used it for ages. So I've brought it up, and that's what I'm going to put the candle, if I've got lots of different shaped candles, but when I've got like a long candle, like this one, it'll go in my Manchester City bottle. So there you go, I'm already waffling. Let me carry on saying hello to everybody. Hi, Amanda Jane. Hi, Charlie Angel. Hi, Pauline Smith. Hi, Wendy Wu. Hi, Yvonne. Hi, Laurie. How are you? Hi, Jackie. Yeah, Wendy, you'll love that wine bottle. I don't, God knows where they got it from. I really don't know where they got it from. Exactly. Teenagers, they're so quick on the uptake. But, I've taught teenagers, if they don't want to learn, it's almost pointless trying to make them learn. Honestly, that's something over the years that I would say. Sometimes I think that some, teenagers, they could do with really leaving school and going back later, because literally, honestly, it's like an exercise in futility. You're trying to teach them something they don't want. If they're not interested in it, they're just not going to do it, and that's all there is to it. It's pointless, trying. So it might be better sort of giving them a bit of time out, and then them going back when they're ready to learn. I don't know, but then you get some teenagers love it. If they're keen, they're interested in the subject. I always try and make it interesting for them. Like, obviously, we talked a lot about football, because there's no point in sitting a teenager down and trying to talk to them about grammar. But if you can present, give them a football magazine to read and teach them in that way, you have to sort of think outside the box. Hi, Tracy. You're not getting notifications, but you've got your notifications switched on. I think this is an issue sometimes with StreamYard. So maybe what I should do is not only set up the thing on StreamYard, but put a community post out when I've got a live. But anyway, thank you for letting me know that. It's interesting, because quite often people say that to me, that they haven't had a notification. So, hi everyone, hang on. I've got two computers going at the moment. I've got my laptop here so that I can see, but it's started to, so that I can make sure when I'm sharing things, etc., make sure that I actually am sharing and make sure everything's working. So Charlie received a notification. Yeah, have you got your notifications turned on, Tracy? I don't know what else you can. Have you got all notifications turned on? Because sometimes they only send you certain ones. Anyway, it's difficult. I don't know. Really, to be perfectly honest, I don't know. But okay, let me say thank you. Thank you to all of you that have subscribed. If you're not subscribed, if you're watching this at home, hi Janie. If you're watching at home, thank you for watching. Please remember to put your fingerprint on the like button. Please subscribe if you're not already subscribed. It's completely free. Those are free ways you can help my channel. And then, if you want to see more videos, if you don't want to see more videos, then you don't have to subscribe, obviously. Thank you especially to my members, for all of you who support me on the members channel. That's very much appreciated. And thank you, of course, anyone who's bought me a Ko-fi or sent me a super, supported my channel in any way. Thank you to those of you that send me emails. Do try and work through all my emails. Sometimes it's difficult because I get a little bit, sometimes I get quite a lot all at once. But it's like this case was recommended to me quite a long time ago, and I've only just got a chance to sort of make a video about it. So please don't think when you send me an email, if I don't reply, that I haven't taken any notice of it or whatever. I always take notice of it, but I just sometimes sort of run out of time. Okay. Sorry, I've got to have a little. So yes, I've got the golden goblet tonight. I've got rosé wine. My voice is croaking. As I say, Monday's quite a busy day for classes. So where we're going to start? We're going to start with a little update about Samantha. I think I'm going to have a voice rest sooner or later. Excuse me. Now then, where do I start? So we've got I want to show you this video. So I think a lot of you know that recently the police, I think it was yesterday, a sort of new thing that came out was that the police were going to start to access crucial phone data. And a lot of you were sort of like a bit, well, what, only just, but who knows whether they really are only about to access it. Maybe they've already accessed it. Maybe they had to wait for permissions to access it. And this other case that I'm going to talk about tonight that resonates, there's a lot of similarities with Samantha's case. It'd be interesting to hear about the phone data there, what happened with the phone data there. So let's just have a look at this video.
29 days since Samantha Murphy mysteriously vanished while going for a run. Major progress that could lead to a breakthrough. Investigators have received new mobile data revealing the people whose phones pinged in the same area and the same time as Ms. Murphy's.
It's what they call a tower dump, of saying what phones were bouncing off, what other electronic equipment.
Here's Charlie Bazina. He's like the Mark Williams Thomas in Australia. He's a former detective. He comes on here, and he gives his valuable insight. Apparently, he's got quite a good reputation in Australia, maybe a bit better than Mark. I think Mark Williams Thomas perhaps used to have a good reputation, but his reputation has gone a bit downhill lately.
Was bouncing off these towers.
Even their movement potentially can be tracked as well. So this gives police a lot more information to investigate about who might have been associated in the area with her.
It's a complex case for detectives from the Missing Persons Squad. They have more than 12,000 hours of security vision to go through and almost 800 individual pieces of information.
See, why the other case that we're going to look at is very telling. I'm not saying that what happened in the end in the other case, as you'll see, is what's going to happen in the end with Samantha Murphy's case. But some of the similarities, like, searching through the bush, although please don't start making jokes about the bush. Sorry, I'm making myself giggle and I haven't even said anything. But, all the searches, the phone data, etc., these are things that are similar. So although I'm not saying that the result's going to be the same in this case as it was in the other case that we're going to look at, I think there's a lot of relevance in just the circumstances.
To either eliminate or include.
It's an enormous task. When you've got nothing else, you've got to throw the net quite large out there.
It's taken police weeks to get their hands on this latest metadata. Detectives often have to wait to get the information they need from phone carriers, and linking signals to individual phone numbers is a drawn-out process. Police say it's only one avenue of inquiry. Emma O'Sullivan, 7 News.
Yeah, I still think that the police are drip feeding the information as and when it suits them. But anyway, hi Caroline. So let's turn that one off. Because as soon as I have to turn these down as soon as we go through them, because otherwise, as you know, I end up with too many windows. Right, let me see. Now, I thought this was an interesting video from ABC News, because they've got another ex-detective speaking, a lady this time that I've not seen her speak before, didn't know anything about her. And also they've got a friend of Samantha speaking. So this is an interesting video. We'll look at this next.
One month since there was any trace of Samantha Murphy. 1 month since she left home for a morning run and disappeared. In that time, hundreds of searchers have combed the parkland south of Ballarat, where she is believed to have gone missing. They found nothing. Information from the police investigation has been parceled out in small details over a series of media.
Oh, so I've just seen that Thank You Mello's gifted a membership. And Caroline, you've got the membership. So brilliant, because Caroline did get one. It seems like once you get gifted one, you're more likely to be gifted another. I mean, it took forever for Caroline to get gifted a membership. It took forever for Jim to get gifted a membership, didn't it? But now, great, because I know Caroline likes to be a member, but it's just not something that she can do at the moment. So, yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much, Mello. That's very, very kind. I'll when I come back to the chat, I'll show that. Mello is very sweet, Alana. He's very, very sweet person. So he quite often gives memberships, which is nice.
Conferences.
People just don't vanish into thin air. Someone's got to know something.
I know she's out there somewhere. So if you could please.
Sorry, I just want to say hello to Mariah and hello to old Hippie as well.
Please continue to search for her, to give us something to work with. We'd really appreciate it.
I can confirm that this morning the Missing Persons Squad have taken over investigation primacy in relation to the disappearance of Samantha.
We keep saying it's not suspicious, but when someone's been missing for this period of time, we have no trace. Well, clearly there must be some suspicions there because we haven't been able to locate it.
We do have severe concerns and are very doubtful that she's still alive. We do think that another party has been involved, whether it be one person or a number of people.
Yeah, they quite often say this about one person or a number of people. I'm sure they're saying that for a reason, either because they do think it's a number of people, or are they trying to maybe make one person think that they're not on the, they're so cagey, the police, which, I'm not blaming them for it. I think it's good. I think the police have done really well so far. But, they do sort of, you think, you can't help but sort of question the things that they say.
One month into this investigation, the pressure for answers keeps building.
I think from what I read and see or hear, the public are, what are the police doing? But
yeah, I don't know this lady. This is the first time I've seen this lady speak. Narelle Fletcher, was it? And she's an ex-detective. But she's got some interesting things to say.
The police would be doing everything. They would be working almost 24/7.
Narelle Fraser spent 27 years with Victoria Police and as a senior detective helped solve the high-profile Mornington Monster Sharp family murder case.
This is a case, I don't know if any of you know about this case, but that twonk that you just saw him briefly there, and this is his wife and his little child that he murdered. One day I'll do a video on that, but it's very, very distressing. You know, he's a complete, you know, just one of those, they're all twonks, but he's a, you know, some twonks are worse than others, aren't they? He's about one of the worst that you'll ever hear about. And she's worked on that case.
And the disappearance of Maria Korp.
I don't know.
So this week it'll be a month since Samantha went missing. Is it unusual to have had that much time go by without any answers?
Not at all. A month is, yes, you know, that's a while, but the police would be doing so much away from the public eye. Do people really think that the police are going to tell them everything? Do they really think that we're going to take them inside our investigation into our little bubble and share all this information? That's not how it works.
But with few...
Well, exactly, and good for her for saying it, because of course that's not how it works. You know, the police aren't going to, you know, take over. The police will, you know, if they're police that are any good, which they seem to be good, I would say, they'll just share the information that suits them to share when it suits them to share it. You know, they're conducting an investigation. They can't involve everyone in it, but they'll try and keep people. It's a very tricky balance, isn't it, to sort of try and keep people invested in the case because they want public attention, public help, but they don't want the public, you know, taking over it. You know, they need to keep control of everything, and I think they're doing it quite well.
Few updates for the community, theories are running rampant. For friends of Samantha, like Bianca Card, the speculation is hard to take.
Sickening. Absolute sickening. Yeah, the theories and, you know, motorbike gangs or whatever. I mean, you really don't know.
So this is one of Samantha's friends talking.
People hear different things, and at the end of the day, you really don't know.
One key detail police have revealed: the forensic examination of Samantha's mobile phone and her Apple Watch. They've confirmed her phone signal was picked up by a mobile tower south of Ballarat. They're now believed to be also checking other phones that were recorded on towers in the area where Samantha disappeared. That will be many more hours.
So I just want to say hi, Ali, and hi, Sarah. Thank you for being here.
Of inquiry. It is painstaking and it all takes time, but Narelle Fraser says it's the only way a case like this will be solved.
You know, when you look at this, like, you think, oh my God. I know that they've got the phone data to help them pinpoint searches, etc. But you'll see from the case that we're going to look at how long it took that case to be resolved. I hope that's not going to happen with the Samantha Murphy case. But having said that, as long as it gets resolved, even if it takes a long time, better that it gets resolved sooner, you know, better late than never. But it took quite a long time. The case we're going to look at that is similar to this case took quite a long time for a resolution. And part of the reason is they're looking for finding the body. The police have said they're looking for a body. Trying to find a body, you could look at that. Where are you going to find the body? You know, very difficult.
Sometimes the avenues are so ridiculous, but you have to consider them. Has she caught a taxi or an Uber somewhere? Has she gone to a retreat? Has she, I don't know, has she met somebody else? Has she met somebody online? Like there, and you have to consider all these different possibilities.
Yeah, I do think it's interesting, isn't it? Because you cannot overrule any possibility, even if you think from what you find out about Samantha, it's probably 99% unlikely that she's run off with somebody else. But what about that 1%? You know, just because you don't believe that that's necessarily true doesn't mean to say that you can then just say, oh no, that's probably not true. You've got to still, follow the evidence, make sure there's no evidence that would suggest that. So it is painstaking. The whole thing is painstaking. Any murder investigation, when they don't have the body especially, is painstaking. Once you've got the body, it's different. But I think they're probably in a bit of a race against time now to find the body, because the longer it goes that they don't find the body, the harder it is to determine cause of death. And the cause of death is what will make the difference, between a murder charge and a manslaughter charge. That's what we'll see about the other case. The longer a body is left, the harder the cause of death is to determine.
They gave us these beautiful pictures.
Bianca Card still remembers the day Sam and Mick Murphy brought over items to help decorate their new home. The families became close when they moved to Ballarat, and their middle children attended the local Deb Ball together last year.
I'm only a friend. I can't even imagine what the family's going through. They're holding up a brave face, but it's tough.
Now, when I was watching this video of Mick there in the car, who is taking that video? Did he know that video was being taken? Sometimes I wonder, maybe the police are directing Mick a little bit, not because even that they suspect him, because maybe Mick is, who is taking that video and why is Mick allowing it to be done? Do you see what I mean? Has it been a setup? Are the police trying to make it look not trying to make it look like it's Mick, but maybe it's nothing to do with Mick and they're just happy for people to think it's something to do with Mick while they concentrate on someone else. We just don't know. I just can't imagine who took that video, and Mick seemed to look at them. So did he know that that video was being taken of him? And this was the video when they sealed off a crime scene, didn't they? Because they thought that something might have been found, but they said it turned out to be nothing. Mick turned up there at the scene and a photo was taken of him, like holding his head in his hands like that and, brandished all over the mainstream media. And then they told us not to speculate like they do. But yeah, it just makes me think, who is taking that video? Is it just someone sneaking down, someone's low down taking that video? Are they taking it secretly? Who knows?
Like, I've got bits of furniture of Sam's and Mick's here, and it's really like it's a constant memory. Like, we've got pictures, and yeah, I look around and I've got bits of Sam in my house. So, like, they'd do anything. She would have done anything for anyone.
What would you like our audience to know?
One thing that, am I old-fashioned? But she looks like she's got chewing gum. Would you go on an interview on some national thing, talking about your friend who's gone missing and the police are saying he's probably dead and she's chewing gum? Strange for me, that. But anyway, so everybody seems to think, everyone who's spoken about Sam says what a lovely person she was. And I know, you do tend to get a bit of that because, obviously when someone's deceased, you don't want to, or thought to be deceased, nobody wants to talk about them in a negative way, but there does seem to be a general consensus of Sam being a lovely person. But you'll see in the next case, in the case that I'm going to talk about, which is similar to this case, unfortunately, the poor woman that was at the centre of that was not afforded the same respect. She was actually, there was a lot of bad things said about her. But anyway, we'll look at that as we come to it.
Now, what's the reason you've decided to make the difficult decision and talk to us?
I don't want people to forget about Sam. Sam's family needs closure. They're all just trying to cope in their own way. But that's such a tight-knit family that you just couldn't fathom anything happening. She was, you know, a huge piece of Ballarat. I mean, the Murphys are a huge piece of Ballarat. And yeah, we just want her home one way or another.
Yeah, so it just seems strange to me that, like you say, even if it's Nicorette, it's quite unusual to be on camera chewing gum, isn't it? But I don't know. Maybe it made her feel better, you know, like maybe it was for nerves. Who knows? Or like say Nicorette, maybe it was so that she didn't have to have a cigarette. Who knows? Okay, so I think that is it as far as updates on Samantha are concerned. Things might come up as we're on live, because I know it's morning time in Australia. But, you know, as far as I know, there's nothing else has come out today. If anybody else knows, let me know. But as far as I know, that's it. That's, you know, the only update, which is not much of an update. Now then, let's have a look at this case then. So, this case is a woman called Karen Ristevski. Sorry, I know I'm going to butcher that surname. So her husband, I'm not sure what nationality is, but obviously it's her husband's name. She was born in New Zealand. So Karen was actually born in New Zealand, but this case happened in Australia. Let's have a little look at the basics of it. We're going to listen to a podcast about it. We're going to have a look at him, an interview with him, an interview with his daughter. Now, the first thing that was so similar about this is when Karen went missing, he appeared, well, his daughter, their daughter, appeared on a press interview very similar to the interview that Mick made with Jess, Samantha's daughter. So that's the first similarity, really. Anyway, let me read you what happened. Now, a bit of a spoiler, though, I need to tell you that eventually he was arrested for her murder, but it took quite a long time for him to be arrested for the murder. And he admitted manslaughter in the end. I'm just trying to decide how to sort of tell where to start with this story. Let me see, which one shall I put on first? Right, let's look at this first. Now, the difference between these two cases is at the interview that he did with his daughter when his wife was missing. I think this was 2016, so it's a little while ago. Let me see if I can find the date. All right, we'll find the date later. But it's a little while ago, and he appeared with his daughter, made an appeal like Jess did, and he was comforting his daughter during that appeal. But at some point, one of the journalists actually asked him, "Did you kill your wife?" So let's have a look at that. Oh, it's taking me to an advert.
Boris, can you ask him, as the last person to speak?
Yeah, Boris is really distressed at the moment, so I'd rather you didn't ask.
Boris, did you kill Karen?
That's really not appropriate at the moment. Thank you so much.
Leave it there. We'll leave it there, guys.
Yeah, I honestly.
Boris, can you ask him, as the last...
So his daughter's just done an impassioned plea, you know, for find a mother, etc. And this journalist, which is very strange, isn't it? I'm sure the police must have given him permission to ask that. I don't know. Actually asked him, "Did you kill your wife?" Look at his face.
Yeah, Boris is really distressed at the moment, so I'd rather you didn't ask.
Boris, did you kill Karen?
That's really not appropriate at the moment. Thank you so
We'll
much.
leave it there. We'll leave it there, guys.
Yeah, I honestly have to say that is really inappropriate. This is about Karen.
Now you can see that his daughter is very, very upset. When that journalist says to him, "Did you kill your wife? Did you kill Karen?" I think his face just says it all, really, but he doesn't know what to say. He was probably not expecting that question. But for the police, for the family liaison officers not to protect him from that question, makes you think that they must have suspected it then.
This is not about anything else. This is about finding Karen. So, thank you. If you can help me.
Let's watch it again. Now, I just want to say I'm not suggesting that Mick killed Samantha. I'm just showing you this case because there are a lot of similarities.
Boris, can you ask him, as the last person to speak?
Yeah, Boris is really distressed at the moment, so I'd rather you didn't ask.
Boris, did you kill Karen?
That's really not appropriate at the moment. Thank you so
We'll
much.
leave it there. We'll leave it there, guys.
Yeah, I honestly have to say that is really inappropriate. This is about Karen. This is not about anything else. This is about finding Karen. So, thank you. If you can help me.
So, you know, it seems like she just walked out of the home, apparently. And that's what he said. She walked out. She was never seen again. He said he didn't know what had happened to her. We're going to listen to a podcast which will tell you all the details of the case. Now, the strange thing about this case is his daughter, or their daughter, still to this day does not really, you know, she still defends her father, even though he has admitted now, and he's in prison at the moment for killing Karen. His daughter still does not accept it. His daughter still supports her father. It's quite strange, really, because why? You know, is she not angry? You know, even if she still loves him because he's her father, is she not angry with him because he took away her mother? Anyway, I don't know. But let's have a look at an interview with her. Let's see, what should we look at now? Let's have a look at this. So, this was the secret that it's pronounced Boris, but it's pronounced Boris. The secret that cost Boris Ristevski years in prison. Oh, God. These bloody things. Oh, so Boris Ristevski, sorry, I'm useless at pronouncing these names, was carrying a secret as friends, family members and mourners gathered around him at the funeral for his wife Karen. What they didn't know at the time was that the Melbourne man had killed his long-term partner and the mother of his only daughter, Sarah, at their Avondale Heights home earlier in 2016. Months later, he would admit to killing his wife, but there remains one secret he will not reveal: how and why he did it. Now, because it was a long time before Karen's body was found, as I was saying, they could not establish a cause of death. So that's how he ended up with a manslaughter charge rather than a murder charge. So next month, from when this article was made, marks the 5 years since she was killed at the hands of her husband, bundled into the boot of his car and driven to dense bushland where her body was dumped and left to decompose to such a state that the cause of death was unable to be ascertained, I should say. Her death is part of a pattern of behaviour from men in Australia, where one woman a week is murdered by her current or former partner. Almost 10 women a day are hospitalised for assault injuries at the hands of a spouse or domestic partner. So yeah, she was comforted. This is the daughter. She was comforted by her father at the press conference, a bit like Jess was by Mick. But even now, his daughter is still on his side. So in April of 2019, Ristevski stood in the Supreme Court of Victoria while Justice Christopher Beale sentenced him for killing Karen and trying to cover it up while her body was missing for 8 months. 8 months. The then 55-year-old showed little emotion as he was jailed for a minimum of 6 years. I told you would be outraged. So his minimum sentence, even though he's admitted that he's killed her, but he won't admit how he killed her, he was jailed for a minimum of just 6 years in a sentence that sparked outrage from the public. So his plan appeared to have worked. He and his lawyers had gambled on silence, hoping that by not revealing the truth about what he did to his wife, he would escape the maximum penalty. And Judge Beale hinted that Ristevski may have escaped a more lengthy jail term because there were facts omitted. He said he simply could not say whether the killing of Karen was middle or upper range of seriousness for manslaughter. What middle or, there's just one range of seriousness. It's pretty bloody serious, isn't it? Because of the so he's benefiting from the fact that he's not telling the truth. Whereas really it should be the opposite. If you don't tell what's actually happened, you should get the longer sentence. He's given the minimum sentence because he can't establish the longer, the more serious part of manslaughter. So Justice Beale said, without knowing the level and duration of the violence perpetrated by you before causing your wife's death, he had struggled to rank the level of manslaughter committed by Ristevski, but it would not be long before the tactic backfired. So the prosecutors appealed, and in December of that same year, the Victorian Court of Appeal punished Ristevski for refusing to tell how or why he killed his wife of 27 years. So his original sentence of 9 years, with a minimum of 6, was set aside. And wow, they gave him this fantastically big sentence of 13 years with a minimum of 10. Oh my God, he's murdered his wife. He's murdered his wife. It's got to be counted as murder. And you know why it's got to be counted as murder? Because manslaughter is when you do something in a crime of passion in an instant and you instantly regret it. Not when you try and cover it up and leave your wife out in the elements for 10 months or however long it took and lie to your daughter and lie to everyone That is not manslaughter, that is murder. Anyway, outside court, Karen's brother Stephen went a step further, telling reporters that capital punishment, the death penalty, should be reinstated in Victoria. Well, I don't believe that. But what I do believe is the fact that he tried to cover up her death, to me, would be automatic. It should be murder. You know, if he, as I say, if they'd had an argument, he's lost his temper, and obviously it's not good, but at least if he then phoned the police, admitted what he'd done, you know, how has he got away with that? Covering it up, how has he got away with that? Anyway, I don't know, just beyond me, I'm afraid. So this must be, who is this? This is the daughter with the picture of poor Karen. So Chief Justice Anne Ferguson said Ristevski showed a total lack of remorse for what he had done. Miss Ristevski should have been safe in her own home. Of course she should have been. He did not simply maintain his silence, but he took immediate steps to avoid his crime being discovered. He has not shown one scintilla of remorse for what he did. Oh, God. What silence means, when one puts all of that together, what one can say about what occurred in the house is that it must have been something significant. What one concludes is that something bad must have happened in the house. So Sherelle Moody, who has documented the violent deaths of some 2,400 women and children in Australia for the Red Heart campaign, told this news agency that many women's deaths were foreseeable and preventable. Intimate partner and domestic violence is too common in Australia. Anyway, it goes on to talk about domestic violence in Australia. But I think, to me, the key issue here is this guy, he has only received a minimum of 10 years. Now, you know, it's been sort of upped, hasn't it, the sentence, but it's still only a minimum of 10 years. And the whole sentence is going to serve is 13 years. And that's like a reward that he's got for covering up her death. You know, he didn't sort of go and admit what he'd done to the police. He hid a body and made, how much did that cost searching for a body for 10 months? You know, how much did that cost the state, even if you just take it from a financial point of view, apart from the emotional side of it? How he lied to his daughter, he lied to Karen's family. I'm honestly totally outraged by this case, absolutely outraged. And now I feel like this is what people are, you know, twonks are going to think, that as long as they hide the body for as long as possible and it can't be established what the cause of death is, because they can't establish that she was stabbed or, you know, strangled or however he killed her. They can't establish it. Because of that, he's been rewarded with a shorter sentence. But he shouldn't have been rewarded with a shorter sentence. He should have been punished with a longer sentence. That's what I mean, what do you think? Surely, you know, you don't get rewarded for hiding a body. Anyway, I just want to we'll look at this article. We're going to listen to a podcast soon. We're going to hear his daughter speak as well. Let's just have a look at this article. So this was done by Current Affair, which I've showed some of their videos before. They seem to be, they're a news sort of agency, if you like, in Australia. Let's have a look at their video.
We begin with the sensational new development in the suspected murder of Karen Ristevski. Early this morning, her husband Boris was arrested by detectives from the Missing Persons Squad and charged with her murder. In a moment, I'll be joined by Laura Turner for the very latest, but first, her special report on today's events.
Without the knowing, is the hardest part. Just give us a call, give the police a call. We had a bit of an argument.
It was Boris Ristevski who helped carry his wife's coffin from her funeral. Just one chapter in a murder investigation.
Oh my God, he's one of the pallbearers. And, oh my God. Oh, there's something wrong with the justice system everywhere. There's something wrong that people can do these kind of things and then just come out with a 10-year sentence.
Investigation that's been gripping.
Started calling her phone and there was no answer. It went straight to message bank.
Months earlier, Boris and his daughter Sarah had fronted a press conference, pleading for answers in Karen's disappearance.
It's not like her to miss work as well.
Just give us a call or give the police a call or, just give anyone a call.
So there he is, comforting his daughter. Yeah, just give us a call, give the police a call, give anyone a call. And in the meantime, he knows. Doesn't matter who gives a call because he's killed her, he's hidden her out in the bush somewhere. And, it's just, 10 years. That's his sentence. Oh my God.
At a separate press conference, Boris directly questioned by a reporter over Karen's death.
Boris, did you kill Karen?
That's really not appropriate at the moment. Thank you so much.
This morning, the 53-year-old father was reduced to a lonely figure in a courtroom dock, accused of the murder, which has both fascinated and frustrated.
We begin with breaking news 17 months after.
Can I just say as well, the thing is, poor Karen, she hasn't got a voice. So when, people were saying bad things about her, because a lot of people have said bad things about Karen, including his son by a previous relationship, the daughter, you just want to slap the daughter. I'm sorry. I just want to slap her across the face because she's sticking up for her dad. She stuck up for her dad. And I understand that. I thought the world of my dad. But, her mother, at the end of the day, her father killed her mother, and not only that, all right, maybe she was a right bitch. I don't know if she was a bitch or not, but she can't stand up for herself now because she's dead. So she can't say, her side of the story. But even if she was a bitch, even if she drove him to it, but he still hid her body and lied about it for months. So it's not really a crime of passion, is it? So honestly, that poor woman and how her family must feel because, her name's been dragged through the mud. Believe me, a lot of bad things have been said about Karen. We'll hear about it in the podcast that we're going to listen to. And she has got no voice to say, hang on a minute, actually, no, he was a twonk, it wasn't me.
After Melbourne woman Karen Ristevski went missing, her husband has faced court charged with a 47-year-old's murder.
Boris faced court for just a matter of minutes, an administrative hearing that would kick off a legal process that's likely to run for many months. Boris's high-profile lawyer Rob Starry telling the court his client intends to plead not guilty. The 53-year-old appeared heavily bearded. He wasn't required to say anything in the short hearing and he didn't apply for bail. Due to the complex investigation, police have been given extra time to prepare their case for the court. That means Boris Ristevski will be held in the Melbourne Remand Centre for the next 4 months before he appears in court again next April. High-profile defence lawyer David Galbally.
A plea of not guilty won't affect the legal process. He's got the right to enter no plea at all. He can just hear the evidence and say, I don't wish to enter a plea at this point in time. Or alternatively, he could give a plea of guilty or alternatively a plea of not guilty.
Former homicide detective Roland Legg, who hasn't worked on the Ristevski case, says a lot of police work would have gone into this complex investigation.
The police, if they feel they're in possession of all available material and evidence, and they feel that is sufficient, to charge someone, then that's the time they'll do it.
The wait for a breakthrough has been excruciating for Karen's loved ones. A Current Affair has spoken with a number of them today. Her brother Stephen Williams saying he knew the arrest was imminent, but still this is an emotional time. Today has been a surprisingly emotional day, one in which I've been patiently waiting for. It is no way a celebration. It's another stage in bringing my beautiful sister Karen the justice she so deserves. Again, a huge thank you to the Missing Persons Squad, also to Emily, Lachlan, my cousins and work colleagues who've been so very supportive through these long last 18 months.
This is where the Ristevski case began, a quiet, upmarket street in Melbourne's northwestern suburbs. On that day, reports were that a 47-year-old mother had walked out of her home, just here behind me, and disappeared. The homicide squad was involved early on though. Creek beds, bushland, even business connections were examined in a case that would stretch on for a year and a half.
It's been 532 days since Karen disappeared on June 29 last year. On July 4, Karen's daughter Sarah made that tearful public plea for information. On July 8, her husband Boris was questioned by police over the disappearance. July 31, Boris tells reporters that although the family home had CCTV, it wasn't working. August 23, Vasco.
Funny that, isn't it? The CCTV wasn't working. How strange. How strange.
Ristevski, Boris's brother, claims Karen is alive and went overseas using a...
I agree, Heather. It's a lovely dress, isn't it? I was going to say, oh, lovely dress, and then I thought, oh, but I've just seen here on the chat that you were saying it was a nice dress. It's a beautiful dress, yeah. And I agree, Charlie, will be held to account on Judgment Day. I know that. Now, just let me say, because it will come up in the podcast that we're going to listen to, even to this day now, he still has not said what happened. He hasn't said why he killed her. He's admitted he's killed her, but he has not said why he killed her, how he killed her, why he hid her. But, you know, he's just not talking about it at all. He's just sat there waiting to come out of prison. And he's having a nice time in prison. I'm going to show you that in a minute before we listen to the podcast as well. He's been transferred to a minimum security prison. It's like a bloody holiday camp, you know. So he's not having like a... He started off in a high security prison, but he's not in there now. So, you know, they're probably thinking he's not a threat to anyone. And he probably isn't a threat to anyone else. He was a threat to this woman. He murdered this woman and she will never come back. But he probably isn't a threat to anybody else. But why should it? He's just biding his time now till he comes out of prison. Then he'll be playing happy families with his son and daughter. Oh, it's so irritating.
Fake passport. August 28, it's revealed that Karen's mobile phone was detected by transmitter towers on the Calder Highway near Gisborne. On the same day, Boris's mobile phone was detected on the same highway near Diggers Rest. Oddly, it had been turned off for 2 hours.
Now, this is relevant as well about the data, the phone data. He turned his phone off for 2 hours, but of course they can tell all that. And, you know, where the phone pings and everything. This is what will decide Samantha's case, isn't it? Which will solve Samantha's case. It'll be the phone pings. And again, I don't know if... I'm not saying it's Mick who did it, but somebody did it. Somebody took Samantha away. And whoever it is, these are the ways that they're going to be found.
February 20 this year, Karen's badly decomposed body is found in bush at the base of Mount Macedon. Then police release images of a car thought to be Karen's heading towards where her body was found. And for the first time, they confirm Boris Ristevski is a suspect. And today, Boris Ristevski is arrested and
Yeah, so they found the CCTV of the car, Karen's own car. So he's took her off to dump her body in her own car. You know, all these things I think should give an extra few years to a sentence. Just the contempt that they treat people with, taking her off in her own car, hiding a body for as long as he can. All these things should add on to the sentence. Why has he got only a 10-year sentence? Why?
charged with his wife's murder. Boris Ristevski is understood to have moved out of the family home in Avondale Heights around October this year. He's also been quietly working for traffic management company Utilities Traffic Management for months. The manager of that company, well-known female Collingwood Football Club star Moana Hope. Moana Hope's company was operating out of a residential property in this suburban court behind me. And while Boris Ristevski had been keeping a low public profile in recent months, many people living here knew his movements every day. They'd watch him turn up to work most mornings alongside a high-profile football player.
I just seen him in the car once and him pulling up over down there. I think he was going with a girl down the bike.
You obviously recognised him.
Well, only because somebody in the court said, do you realise who that person is? Because they had seen it in the paper, or that he was working with a transport company or something like that.
Right. Neighbours objected to the traffic management business being run from a suburban house, though, and complained to the local council.
All the workers, they had all their utes parked and all their cars parked here, and they were blocking everybody off.
It's understood the football star relocated the business less than 2 weeks ago.
We begin.
The Ristevski case has had many twists and turns. It was a current affair that informed Boris his wife's body had been found.
A current affair made contact with Boris Ristevski at around 3 o'clock this afternoon. He hadn't heard the news that a body had been found.
Morning. Let's go.
And our own Marty King, who sensationally came across Boris's brother Vasco walking around the very same bushland where Karen's...
Now, this was very strange because when the current affair, this programme, went out to film something at the site where Karen had been found, who was there but his brother? His brother was there to pay his respects. It just, it just makes you wonder if the brother was involved in any way, but there's no proof of that. It was just, and as you can see, the brother doesn't want to talk when the reporter comes out.
Remains were located.
It's 1 year since Karen disappeared. Vasco, what are you doing out here, mate?
Very odd, isn't it?
Vasco, what are you looking in the bush for? Can you tell me what Vasco? Do you think it's suspicious that you're out here, Vasco?
Boris Ristevski denies he had any involvement in his wife's murder, and in the months to come, it's through the courts the public will hear the detail of his defence.
A magistrate presides over committal proceedings.
Yeah, let's just look at that again. How did he know this brother? How did the brother know where a body was?
From a suburban house, though, and complained to the local council.
All the workers, they had all their utes parked and all their cars parked here, and they were blocking everybody off.
It's understood the football star relocated the business less than 2 weeks ago.
We begin.
The Ristevski case has had many twists and turns. It was a current affair that informed Boris his wife's body had been found.
A current affair made contact with Boris Ristevski at around 3 o'clock this afternoon. He hadn't heard the news that a body had been found.
Morning. Let's go.
And our own Marty King, who sensationally came across Boris's brother Vasco walking around the very same bushland where Karen's remains were located.
It's 1 year since Karen disappeared. Vasco, what are you doing out here, mate?
It's very strange, isn't it? Very strange that he was out there. He looked strange as well. They're obviously... Poor Karen. Karen has been slated. And what is this guy doing here at her body deposition site?
Vasco, what are you looking in the bush for? Can you tell me what he... Vasco? Do you think it's suspicious that you're out here, Vasco?
Boris Ristevski denies he had any involvement in his wife's murder, and in the months to come, it's through the courts the public will hear the detail of his defence.
A magistrate presides over committal proceedings, and at that hearing, he establishes whether there's sufficient evidence for the matter to be put before a jury, who ultimately at the Supreme Court decide on guilt or innocence.
Laura Turner joins me now from outside the Melbourne Remand Centre. Laura, did Boris Ristevski have any family support in court today?
Good evening to you, Layla. No, he certainly did not. Boris Ristevski cut a pretty lonely and solemn figure in the Melbourne Magistrates Court this morning. No sign of his and Karen's daughter, Sarah, who we understand is overseas at the moment, and certainly no sign of his brother, Vasco, either. In recent weeks, Layla, there has been a lot of talk that an arrest was imminent in this case. Now that that has happened, Boris Ristevski is inside the building behind me, the Melbourne Remand Centre. We now know he will spend Christmas behind bars.
Okay, Laura, thank you very much. Laura Turner there.
So, yeah. Okay. Now, we're going to look at something else now. Yeah, so what I want to look at now is where he is now. You know, that he's been moved. So loathed wife killer Boris Ristevski is mysteriously moved out of a high security prison. So he's been moved to a medium security prison facility in Ararat, and he'll be housed with corrupt police officers and sex offenders at a new facility. So he'll be protected, in other words. So wife killer Boris Ristevski has been moved out of high security prison to a correctional centre which houses corrupt cops and sex offenders. He's serving out a 13-year jail sentence. Honestly, every time I say that, I just cannot believe that, you know, this is an encouragement to people to kill their wives. You know, you look at this and you think, well, you know, if a man or a woman, to be honest, if it was the other way around, this is like a lesson in how to kill your wife, how to kill your husband and get away with 13 years, which 13 years might feel like a long time, but it goes quick, as we know. And he'd still be young enough. If he's 50, he's only going to be in his 60s when he comes out. So, I mean, well, it says here, 56-year-old. What year was this? So this was 2020. So it was 4 years after he was in prison. So he's only got 9 years to go. So he's only, you know, maximum of 9 years to go. So he's going to be 65 when he comes out. And all right, it's not a spring chicken, but it's not exactly, you know, you can still come out and, you know, have a good few years left. Just awful. Anyway, without explanation, he was mysteriously downgraded to this facility, which houses 762 criminals, most of whom require isolation from the general prison population, corrupt cops and sex offenders. Here it is, the Hopkins Correctional Centre. So it's not really a prison, is it? Apparently there's a swimming pool, basketball courts and a football field. A variety of accommodation inside the facility, single, double and triple cells. Inmates can take part in a series of reintegration programs as well as educational and workplace opportunities. Now, I'm not against that sort of thing. I mean, they've got to do something. They can't just, you know, you've got to keep them occupied. I'm not against the education, etc., and working, etc. I'm not against that, but I just feel like, where was this woman, Karen? Where is the justice for her? So that these prisoners can work full-time in the laundry or kitchen, as well as constructing number plates or wood products. And when it asked why he was being transferred, a spokesperson said they were unable to comment on individual prisoners. And the decision was likely made based off a number of factors, including good behaviour behind bars and a security assessment. So this is them in happier times, Karen, Boris and the daughter. Oops. So it gives you some pictures. Oh, hang on. Oh, it keeps jumping, Some pictures of the facility here somewhere. So here it is. So this is the medium security prison. So bearing in mind that he lied for 2 years about being involved, even when after a body was found, he still lied about it. Let's have a look at the video.
Hopkins Correctional Centre is a medium secure prison. It's probably one of the largest footprint prisons in the state. We look after up to 798 prisoners. We have a whole age range and cultural range here. We look at their offending behaviour, look at what they need to understand why they're in the position they're in, trying to educate them, give them.
Wendy, it does look like a travel lodge. Hi, Renee. It does look like a travel lodge or
Skills
a
to
Premier
turn
Inn.
into a person that can, on release, be law-abiding and be a good member of the community.
What makes me feel safe is the quality of people that actually I work with. Of course, we've got our general tools, the doors, the locks, the windows, the radios, duresses. But your team members, you rely on heavily, and they're trained to a very good standard.
So during the 8 weeks of training, you start off with the basics around legislation and understanding the prison environment, and then you...
Hi, Wesley. Didn't see you creep in earlier. Sorry, I didn't say hello. Hi, Wesley.
move on to the security side of things. It is all about communication, so communication skills. You would go into the prison and do a week's worth of placement. Once you come out of the prison again, you'd go into case management, how to understand and work with the prisoners.
I enjoy casework. I enjoy the thought of changing someone's attitude and their behaviours when they're going back into the community.
We're one part of a wider network of people, and our reports impact on parole. Our reports impact on people's ability to then...
He seems to have an English accent, this guy, doesn't he? Is that an English? I don't think he's got an Australian accent.
Get released into the community. So good, legible reports is key. Underpinning all of that is having the ability to talk to people, engage with them, break down barriers, and develop them as individuals.
You get many varied tasks. You also need to be prepared that you can work various shifts during the day.
It completely varies from day to day. No 2 days are exactly the same. Different areas do different amounts of searches, and just go through the cells, do audits of the cell property, make sure they've only got things that they've been approved for.
Hopkins is clearly part of ARAT. It's part of the Grampians region. We're a large employer, and so we need to be known as part of the community.
ARAT's a good town. It provides everything. It's out in the country, it's got that rural setting, the community, fantastic. The schools are really good, community clubs, all the shopping needs and everything like that. Yeah, it's all here in ARAT, really.
As a prison officer, there's so many different...
Well, to be honest, it looks like bliss. So you think, there's something to be said for being in a place like that. You don't have to worry about anything.
Different areas that you can get into. If you look further afield at Department of Justice, there's sheriffs, there's CCS, Consumer Affairs, Youth Justice. There's just so many avenues.
I love my job. I wouldn't be here if I didn't.
The work culture within Hopkins has always been one that's been supportive to staff.
We've got a good social club here. You make friends while you're here.
The people we need to...
It reminds me of the videos that Andrew Snowden makes, like the Top Gun type in videos that he makes about Lancashire police. that's what this reminds me of.
Attract to work in an environment like Hopkins. It's about dealing with human beings, looking after them, understanding their issues, developing them, getting to know their person, and doing some quality case management to help them move on and develop as an individual.
Okay, so that's where he is. That's basically where he is. So he's not suffering, really, is he? I mean, like you say, it looks like a Butlins camp or a Holiday Inn or a Travel Lodge or a Premier Inn or something like that. So before we look at the actual podcast, which will give you all the details of this case, I just want to look at the daughter being interviewed.
Police she criticised for how she says they handled the moment she and Boris reported Karen missing.
She blames the police for everything. It's all the police's fault. Her father murdered her mother, but it's all the police's fault. Honestly, this girl, I feel awful because I should feel sorry for her because obviously she lost her mother, but it's difficult to feel sorry for her when you hear her talking.
Rejected claims from Sarah Ristevski that officers were dismissive when she reported her mother Karen missing. As Laura Turner explains, Sarah has broken her silence and fiercely defended her killer father, Boris.
Inside the mind of a daughter who lived inside the home of a killer, her dad, Boris.
I asked him.
You asked him what?
If he had anything to do with it.
Despite Boris's guilty plea to the manslaughter of Karen Ristevski, daughter Sarah is fiercely loyal.
Why have you...
Now, there's part of me that can understand it because, you know, she's lost her mum and now she doesn't want to lose her dad. I understand that. And that's the reason why in the Samantha Murphy case, I hope against hope that Mick has got nothing to do with it, because otherwise those kids have lost a father as well as a mother. But honestly, this girl, the way she talks about blaming the police, etc., I know she's probably under the thrall of her father, but did her mother mean nothing to her? I mean, you know, I know there's a point where teenagers don't like their parents, or, you know, quite often daughters have a bit of a father fixation, don't they? I was a bit like that, you know. I thought my father was some sort of God that couldn't do anything wrong. And as I've got older, I've realised that, you know, he wasn't. He was just a normal person, and it wasn't always my mum's fault, everything that went wrong or whatever. But maybe she'll get to that point one day.
Chosen to not examine your dad, and why have you hung in there with him, I guess?
I believe in him. I think that's what it is.
It was police she criticised for how she says they handled the moment she and Boris reported Karen missing.
They didn't take us seriously.
Why do you say that?
The guy that was there was quite rude. He said she's probably at the pokies or something.
You know, how can she blame the police for this? I don't know how she can blame the police for the fact that her father murdered her mother. You know, am I missing something?
Something like that.
From the time Karen Ristevski went missing, Victoria Police spent almost 3 years investigating the case, which ended when Boris...
They do wear some nice dresses, these Australian reporters, don't they? I suppose because it's hot, they can, you know, wear something nice. But, you know, on the British news, everyone's always got a great big thick coat on. They've always got the big coat on when they're outside because it's always freezing or it's pissing down with rain and they've got an umbrella or whatever. When you watch these Australian news programs, the women always have lovely dresses on.
pleaded guilty to manslaughter. So after Sarah Ristevski's claims last night, the force has responded like this.
Victoria Police is satisfied that the highest professional and ethical standards were maintained. If any person has complaints or concerns about the investigation, then they can report them to the Professional Standards Command or IBAC. Sarah made no indication she'll complain, just further dedication to her father.
I love my dad now. I loved him before, and I'll love him in 11 years when he's home.
even though he has pleaded guilty.
Yeah.
Laura.
Yeah, I mean, you would love them. Of course, you can't help but love your parents, I suppose. But she never seems to say anything about her mum, you know, and about what he did to her mum. It's like, I know somebody was talking about trauma bonding and things, but it's like he's really made a good job of sort of brainwashing her, hasn't he? I mean, there are no words for her mum. Was her mum that bad? You know, was she so horrible? Just, of course, her mum can't speak up for herself.
Turner, 9 News.
Anyway, so there you go. Now, what we're going to do now is we're going to watch this podcast. You know, there's some really good podcasts out there, aren't there? You know, about various cases and that. And I found some really good ones while I've been looking into the Samantha Murphy, you know, podcasts that I've never listened to before, stories that I've not heard before. And this is Life and Crimes with Andrew Rule. And I think this is a really interesting podcast where they talk about, you know, the whole case, but also about the way that Karen was sort of vilified, really, because she didn't have a voice, and, you know, how sort of manipulative Boris was. But anyway, let's have a listen to it.
Well, it was a massive development in the story. This mystery in the early months had captivated the public and the media. And once Karen's body was found and then her funeral was held, there was just a sort of sense that, you know, now this story was going in a different direction.
Hi, I'm Andrew Rule. This week's podcast episode is courtesy of Herald Sun crime writer Anthony Dowsley.
Thanks, Andrew. I'm here with David Hurley, and we are talking about the twists and turns in the case of Boris Ristevski, who killed his wife, Karen. So, Dave, who were the Ristevskis?
You had Boris Ristevski, the husband and father of the family. You had Karen Ristevski and Sarah Ristevski, the couple's 21-year-old daughter. And they all lived together in the house at Avondale Heights. Karen went missing in June 2016, and the Missing Persons Squad launched their investigation probably about 3 or 4 days after she had been reported missing. To begin with, the investigation just stayed with local officers based at Avondale Heights Police Station. And from there, it was kicked up to the Missing Persons Squad when it became apparent that she may have met foul play. So the first press conference was held at Avondale Heights Police Station, which is a tiny little police station.
So that's really quite low key. That means that there really aren't that many concerns about foul play at that point, most likely.
At that stage, the investigation was still being handled by the local officers, and Boris and Sarah appeared together at that press conference on the steps of the tiny police station. With a small number of media there, because at this stage it was sort of a run-of-the-mill missing persons appeal for information, which happen a lot. People don't really hear about them because the stories don't really get much of a run, and most of the time these people who have been missing turn up safe and well. So in that press conference, Boris and Sarah both appealed for information. Boris said that Karen had left home after they had argued about finances at the store, which the couple ran together at the Water Garden shopping centre.
There was a clothing store that Karen mainly managed.
Yeah, that's right. She was the one who really doing the day-to-day management of the store. So Boris said that they'd had an argument about the take-ins and she'd gone for a walk to clear her head and simply didn't return home. So at that press conference, Sarah broke down in tears as she appealed for her mum to come home, basically. Boris looked quite pale, had dark shadows under his eyes, and he looked like a concerned husband who was desperate for his wife to come home, and he was also supporting Sarah, who was clearly distraught.
So then we moved to another press conference not too far in the future from that first one. Did police want to get Boris in front of the cameras for some reason that day?
The police at that stage were saying they were just appealing for information, but it's likely that detectives were very keen to see how he would react in front of the cameras again. By this stage, police definitely suspected Boris had something to do with his wife's disappearance. This was probably about 4 or 5 weeks or so after Karen had gone missing, and I think police began to suspect Boris had something to do with her disappearance very early on.
And the homicide squad's involved?
Well, the missing persons squad, they were the ones who are in charge of the investigation, but the missing persons squad is very closely aligned with the homicide squad. They are essentially homicide detectives, but it's just called the missing persons squad.
So we have suspicions, and we have a second press conference appealing for Karen to come home. That press conference didn't last too long.
That's right. The press conference got cut short. There was a question from Channel 7 reporter Cameron Bowe. He asked Boris if he'd killed his wife, and that essentially brought the press conference to a premature end because Boris just reacted with stunned silence, and the media officer at Vic Pole quickly called off a press conference as Boris and Sarah were ushered to a waiting car. But I think it's likely police would have been keen to study Boris's body language and just how he really reacted to questions from the media.
Of course, there's scrutiny that police can bring on someone in a record of interview room, and then there's scrutiny of how they react in the public. And they probably didn't have all of the methodology you can use in a homicide investigation within the first 48 hours, which is often critical because we have so many missing people every day in Victoria and Australia. So they've missed that period of time, which can be essential when people are trying to get rid of bodies.
Hi, I can't seem to be able to pause it. Bear with me a bit. I think we're just going to have to watch it.
Usually he only wanted to really talk about the couple's finances. He didn't really want to talk about Karen. There were some stories which got put out. Lots of stories were published and went to air. And some of the stories inferred that the couple were in serious financial difficulties. And this was the thing which seemed to annoy Boris. And it just seemed strange. Here's this guy who, on the surface, his wife's vanished and, nobody knows where she is. And Boris is just concerned about sort of letting people know that he's not in financial trouble. Whereas I know it's always hard to say how people would react in these circumstances, but he didn't seem that bothered about getting the message out there to try and find his wife.
What was he doing for a job at that point of time?
I think he worked a few odd jobs. He did work as an Uber driver for a while, and I think he did some sort of tradie work as well. So he's a bit of a jack of all trades.
And it was interesting that they had been able to accrue some assets that were valuable. His house was in a nice street overlooking the CBD in Avondale Heights. I don't think they would have known what hit them in that street when the media came calling.
Yeah, it's a lovely house. I think it was sold for about $1.2 million. It has a fantastic view out from a backyard and the back of a house looking over to the CBD with the Maribyrnong River and Reserve right behind the house. So it's a lovely spot. And I imagine the residents of that street would have become fed up with media in the end because together
quite engaged near URA
property in Avondale.
So then we moved to another press conference not too far in the future.
He's not in financial trouble, whereas I know it's always hard to say how people would react in these circumstances, but he didn't seem that bothered about getting the message out there to try and find his wife.
What was he doing for a job at that point of time?
I think he worked a few odd jobs. He did work as an Uber driver for a while, and I think he did some sort of tradie work as well. So he's a bit of a jack of all trades.
And it was interesting that they had been able to accrue some assets that were valuable. His house was in a nice street overlooking the CBD in Avondale Heights. I don't think they would have known what hit them in that street when the media came calling.
Yeah, it's a lovely house. I think it was sold for about $1.2 million. It has a fantastic view out from a backyard and the back of a house looking over to the CBD with the Maribyrnong River and reserve right behind the house. So it's a lovely spot. And I imagine the residents of that street would have become fed up with media in the end, because this was such a long-running investigation and news story that the media would just camp out in front of Boris's house for days on end, and it's very busy and it's a really quiet street, so I imagine the local neighbours wouldn't have been too happy towards the end.
A lot is happening behind closed doors. Now, you were able to find out a lot about how the investigation was running as it was running. What sort of searches and information were police collecting that you could ascertain at that time?
As you said earlier, obviously those first few days after someone's gone missing are hugely important, and police often have to play catch up, just that's the nature of the job. As they sort of zeroed in on Boris as their chief suspect, the detectives would have used a number of different techniques to try and enhance their investigation and gather as much intelligence about Boris as they could. So they obviously did an extensive search of the property in Avondale Heights, and they carried out a big canvass of the area to try and find CCTV cameras. They were obviously looking for Karen walking out of the house because that's what Boris told them. But I think they were also looking for any movements of Boris in the hours after Karen vanished. And they seized electronic items belonging to the family and searched those devices to see what sort of Google searches had been undertaken.
So there was an iPad that was, they went through the history of that. And what did that show?
There were some suspicious searches on the iPad. Whoever had used the iPad, and police thought it was Boris, that person had searched for information about how police track mobile phone data, which was to become a key part of the investigation.
So with the mobile phone data, what did that show? Did Boris turn his phone off? Did he have it on? Did it show where he went during the hours after which he said that his wife had gone missing?
Yeah, the police were able to use experts to track where both Boris's phone and Karen's phone were on the day Karen disappeared. They tracked both phones up the caller. Karen's phone was then switched off and remained switched off, and Boris's phone was switched off and turned back on again. But there was a period of, I think it was just under 2 hours on that day Karen vanished, when Boris's phone was switched off, and they were able to track the phones to that general location towards Mount Macedon, which is where Karen's body would eventually be found in February 2017. And it gave police a very good idea of the rough area that they might end up finding Karen, but obviously the information they had, it wasn't specific enough to help them actually find her.
And Boris had counteracted this story when he was interviewed by police by saying he had a faulty fuel gauge that he was trying to test out in Karen's Mercedes-Benz coupe. And CCTV would emerge of a identical coupe going through Diggers Rest, which is heading near that direction, and that would become critical later on.
Yeah, about a year or so after Karen vanished and about 4 months after her body was discovered, police released CCTV of what they believed was the Mercedes as it passed by Diggers Rest railway station. They were certain that it was Boris driving the car and that Karen's body was in the car. They were looking for people to come forward. I think they were especially hopeful for dash cam footage, just to basically build up more evidence against Boris to place him in that area at that time. Because in this case, they didn't have any real physical evidence tying Boris to Karen's death. So it was hard work and it was circumstantial, a lot of it. So they needed to build up as big a brief of evidence as possible against Boris before the matter went to court.
So at this stage, Boris has denied any wrongdoing, and a walker in Mount Macedon has found Karen Ristevski's body under a log. And then there's reports that a witness has seen someone similar to the physical appearance of Boris Ristevski, and that happens prior to the CCTV being released. Was that a key moment where we knew for sure that she had been either killed or met foul play?
It's a strange case. There's probably not one key defining moment in the case. The phone evidence was pretty compelling, but again, it just sort of points to Boris being behind the crime rather than confirming he was. Obviously, when the Walker found Karen's body, that was a major moment in the investigation, because up until then, without a body, the police's job's just extremely difficult. So the body was found, but it'd been outside for so long that police weren't really able to get anything conclusive from the autopsy about how Karen came to die. So the discovery of a body didn't really advance their case. As such, they already fought by that stage.
Australian history is full of colourful but forgotten characters, from alleyway gangsters to...
Right, just turn it off for a minute while they're giving an advert here. I have no idea why I can't pause it. So annoying, it just won't pause, and I have no idea why. But anyway, hopefully, I think you can hear it okay when I've got it on share. Right, I'm going to go back to it now.
Wasn't the case, and it would still be another 10 months or so before they'd be in a position to place the murder charge against Boris.
So as this painstaking investigation is underway, Boris is having to console and deal with his daughter Sarah, who's young and distressed at the disappearance of her mother, and now her father is a prime suspect in a then murder probe. What would he do to deal with that situation?
Well, Sarah had just turned 21 weeks before her mum vanished, and it sounds like she had a very close relationship with both her parents growing up. She was the couple's only child. She was in this position where I think everybody just felt so sorry for her, because on the one hand, her mum was missing in the first instance and then later confirmed to be dead. And on the other hand, her other parent, her dad, is identified as a key suspect in her mum's disappearance. So I think there was a lot of sympathy for Sarah for the position which, through no fault of her own, she found herself in. And then Boris is in this strange position where he's maintaining that he had nothing to do with Karen's disappearance. And we know that from evidence which was heard in one of the court hearings, in which police were monitoring conversations between Boris and Sarah basically questions her father about the phones. And Boris is maintaining that he had nothing to do with Karen's disappearance, and he was basically a victim of a witch hunt by both the police and the media. So in that position, I think Sarah still maintains its position. She's obviously supported her father, and it appears that she still supports her father despite the fact he's pleaded guilty to manslaughter.
He even went as far as to tell his daughter not to trust the police.
Yeah, that's right. And that really hindered the police investigation, because I think they felt that if they'd have had Sarah on side, that could have helped them in building the case against Boris. But Boris quickly turned Sarah against the police, and that avenue of inquiry for the police was shut down.
Boris had family issues apart from that. He had a son to a previous relationship, Anthony Rickard, and he would also make a statement to police about his stepmother, Karen, which depicted her in a light which probably was untrue and quite unsavoury.
This story had so many angles to it, and Rickard, the stepson, was definitely one. So he obviously gave an account to police of the relationship between his father and stepmother, and he also spoke in the media about issues which the family were facing. It's my understanding that the police didn't really pay too much attention to what Rickard was saying from an early stage. I know some of the things he has said have deeply upset members of Karen's family.
So how did the investigators finally close in on unpicking Boris's story? Because he's made comments to police in his interview, and I guess that they just didn't stack up.
Yeah, he's obviously told police that he's been driving up the Calder to see if he could fix a faulty fuel gauge. My colleague Andrew Jefferson and we both spoke to a mechanic the family used, and he did confirm that there was an issue with the fuel gauge. So Boris is obviously quite smart, and he's obviously lying, but he's trying to use things which are truthful to work into his story. So he's told the police that he's taken the drive up the corridor, the fault's corrected itself, and he's turned for home. So he hopes that that explains why he was on that road at that time, but the police don't believe him.
Meanwhile, there's a funeral for Karen, and obviously Boris is in attendance and is a pallbearer, and he's crying crocodile tears as she is taken from the chapel. There was a throng of media there. What was the feeling right at that point?
Well, it was a massive development in the story. This mystery in the early months had captivated the public and the media. And once Karen's body was found and then her funeral was held, it was just a sort of sense that, now this story was going in a different direction, and really anticipation of what would happen next. So Boris was one of the pallbearers and spoke at the funeral. He was crying, and again, he was just playing the part of the grieving husband.
Do you think he was a good liar?
It's difficult to say. He obviously came up with a story that he didn't kill his wife, and he stuck to it rigidly. And it took the police almost a year and a half to charge him. So was he a good liar? I don't think the police believed him from a very early stage, but he obviously was able to do enough to cover up what he had done to carry on living and being a free man for 18 months after he killed his wife. So he convinced people that he hadn't done it, his daughter included and members of the family. But as far as the police are concerned, they definitely didn't believe him.
He has a brother, Vasco, who in one of the strangest twists in this story arrives at Mount Macedon, where his sister-in-law has been found sometime earlier to, he says, pay respects at the site where she was found. And he found a TV crew there waiting for him, and the footage was bizarre when he sees Martin King from A Current Affair just standing there with the TV crew waiting for him. That was just one of many just odd things that happened all the way through this. It really captivated people right around the nation.
I mean, it's such a tragic story at its heart, but it took so many twists and turns, and that's a good example of just one of the many twists and turns. Just the coincidence was amazing about the timing. Vasco was in the woods just at the moment the TV crew arrived. Vasco certainly looked surprised and didn't say too much as he got back into his vehicle. But it just highlighted that this case just always took a surprising turn, and something was always happening to move the story forward, and people were just really interested in it. People were asking, what was he doing there? It's quite a strange thing. This was a few weeks after Karen's body was found. It's quite a strange thing to be sort of lurking in the woods.
And then you yourself find a reenactment going on with a Mercedes-Benz and police up at Mount Macedon, and you just happen to go for a drive up there and stumble across this scene.
Yeah, I stumbled across it, and again, that was quite surprising. This was, I think, August of 2017. It was a really quiet news day, so I just thought I would go up to the location where Karen's body was found. I hadn't actually been up there before. I started speaking to some of the people who lived in the houses just on the way into the dirt track which led into the woods. And I'd spent about an hour or so there, and I was pretty close to heading back to the office, but I got a phone call from one of the neighbours who I'd spoken to previously, and he said, "Oh, you wouldn't believe it. The police have just all driven down into the woods." So I sort of made my way back into the woods and found police were there with a car very similar to Karen's. They were doing tests, basically, I think, to time how long the journey between the location where Karen's body was found to get from there to the Ristevski family home in Avondale Heights. It was very surprising. I didn't expect to stumble upon that. I was just sort of thinking I'll speak to some local residents and try and find out about how much the police had been back since Karen's body had been found earlier in the year.
Charges were laid not long after that, and they were murder charges. And everything goes relatively quiet until basically the court hearings are undertaken. And one of these hearings, unexpectedly, Boris Ristevski pleads up to manslaughter. It's another twist that was unexpected, when what we thought he was going to do was say this is a circumstantial case, largely. I didn't kill my wife, as he had maintained all the way.
It was surprising in a certain way. We had heard that offer had been on the table a few months before, but the police would only give Boris that option of the manslaughter if he came clean and actually told them what happened. But Boris always refused to do that. He just wanted to plead to manslaughter and not tell anyone what happened. In the end, Boris got his own way, really, because the case got to court and the judge basically found that they didn't have enough really to make the murder charge stick.
This really leaves us with a gaping hole in the knowledge of what happened to Karen Ristevski. Do you think we deserve to know exactly what happened for him to be allowed to get a discount for a manslaughter charge rather than police sticking to their guns and going down the murder charge? Or do you think it's an aggravating circumstance and he should get more time than what you would on average for manslaughter?
I think if he is expecting a discount for pleading up to manslaughter instead of murder, I think morally he should definitely come clean about what happened that day. Whether or not he will, it's really hard to say. He's stuck to this. He's maintained this wall of silence for so long that do I expect him to now just turn around and say what happened? I don't think he will. Karen's family have been desperate to know what happened to her. And obviously the relationship they had with Boris broke down. Not immediately, but as time dragged on, they came to suspect that he did have something to do with it. So the relationship really broke down. But they're desperate to know what happened to Karen. And obviously the whole circumstances are so horrible and tragic in itself, but that not knowing about how Karen died, it's tearing them apart. And I think for their sake, Boris should come clean and tell everyone what really happened that day. A theory which a lot of police subscribe to is that the couple have had some sort of argument and he has accidentally killed her. Whether that's she's been pushed and she's gone onto the ground and hit her head or some other way. That's the theory which I think most of the investigators came to believe was the most likely. If that was the case, you'd think Boris would come out and say that's what happened. But the fact he hasn't come out and said anything about what happened will definitely make some people suspect that it could have been more premeditated.
And you would think that his daughter would ask him the question.
Yeah, well, Sarah, I think, did ask him a question and he flat out denied it. That was obviously in the days before he was arrested and charged, but you'd think Sarah would still want to know what happened to her mother for sure.
Lastly, why do you think people became so intrigued with the Ristevski case?
The fact that Karen went missing in June and wasn't found until the following February meant that in those early days it was a real mystery, and I think people just were intrigued. Boris quickly became the number one suspect, and this whole question of did he kill his wife, what happened to her, just it kept people hooked. Different things would come out, the stepson, the brother. It just always seemed to have something new happening or emerging which would keep people gripped. It had all the ingredients of a classic mystery.
Yeah. So there you go. So, let me just turn that off. I'm not sure why I couldn't pause it. I wanted to pause it and commentate on it, but I couldn't. You're probably glad that I couldn't. You didn't have to hear me waffling on. But there were lots of times I wanted to come in and say something there because all these similarities, let's hope it doesn't turn out, in the same way. We don't want Mick to be the one who's responsible, but just listen, I am really outraged about the way this guy just got away with lying or not telling the truth. We don't know if he lied. Maybe it was an accident, but because he's not actually said what happened, we don't know. We don't even have a version of events from him. He has said nothing. He confessed to manslaughter, but he will not say how it happened. He could have planned it. He could have planned it meticulously. There was a lot of financial problems. Financial problems are always an issue, aren't they? And the other case that I'm going to talk about soon that, again, reminds me of this is the case of Alison Baden Clay, who many of you, especially if you're in Australia, will know about. Again, A woman who just walked out one day, vanished into thin air. All these women that this happens to, you know, I don't know where she went. She just went out. She went out to walk the dog. She went out for a run. She went out for a jog. She went to see a friend. Oh, and she just disappeared into thin air. How often does it happen? And Alison Baden-Clay, she was another one. But we'll look at that in another video. So anyway, I hope you found this video interesting. You're probably as outraged as I am now that this guy only got 13 years maximum. So he could be out quite soon, really, because he got 10 years minimum, even though he's not actually said what happened. I don't know. You know, you look at these cases and there's, as I say, somebody sent me this, the link to this case quite a while ago, a couple of weeks ago, and I just haven't had time to look at it properly. And today I just started looking at it, and the more I started looking at it, the more I was thinking, oh my God, these cases will happen all the time. You know, we only concentrate cases that come into the public view and what have you, but there'll be loads of them, smaller cases, lesser known cases that don't get talked about, don't get brought to sort of international, even national attention, never mind international attention. And I honestly believe when somebody has hidden somebody's body like that, they shouldn't be allowed. They should get a maximum sentence, not a minimum sentence, just for the fact is they hid the body and caused all that. You know, how much did that inquiry cost? If you even look on it as a financial cost, if you don't even look at the human side of it, it's, you know, it costs the taxpayer, the Australian taxpayer, so much money. Because he did not admit what he'd done to his wife. He hid her body. And now he's costing the taxpayer more money because he's being kept in, it looks like, quite nice circumstances. And then eventually he'll come out and he'll get another, you know, maybe he'll get another 10, 20 years of life outside of prison. Terrible. Yeah. Absolutely awful. So anyway, we cannot be sure that, you know, Samantha's case is similar in many ways, but we don't know that it's going to end in the same conclusion of the actual husband doing it. We don't know that. We hope that's not going to happen. But there's a lot of similarities. Somebody has taken Samantha Murphy away. Somebody has hidden her body somewhere. We could only hope that her body is found sooner rather than later, because the longer it goes on that her body isn't found, the harder it'll be to sort of do the autopsy, etc., and establish cause of death, the forensic evidence, you know, there's all those things. So, you know, we just have to hope. It's awful that you have to hope that somebody's body's found. But that's how it feels at the moment. Anyway, I'm going, and thank you for being here with me tonight. And as always, thank you for being, for subscribing, for liking my videos, for all those things. You know the drill. I don't have to go through it all again. But thank you so much, and we'll see each other again. What day is it tomorrow? Tuesday tomorrow. Possibly tomorrow. We'll see what happens, see what transpires. Will there be some more information? Let's hope so. But we don't know. And I'm waffling now because I'm really tired. I'm dying to go to bed, to be honest. But thank you so much. Yeah, night, night. Up the fairy dancers to the land of Nod. That's what my dad used to say. Come on. Up the fairy dancers to the land of Nod. Night, night, sleep tight. Don't let the bed bugs bite. Remember to live and love carefully, wisely. And I will see you, as always, very soon in the next video. And until then, may your God go with you, and thank you so much. Thank you.